one of these news media asked me, what outcome do you want from this? And I want the outcome to be that you realize that you're the ones that are going to make this community better. These guys are standing in the gap, you know, when the crime happens and stuff, but they're an important part. I think we have great leadership in these positions that they're in, but it's going to be up to us to make our community better. We started these events to make our community better. This is the point of several that we've done. We had one on philanthropy, we had one on economic development, and this is one of the most important. It took us over a year to put this together and figure out how to do this. And now that we have, again, these men to lead us in this effort, I want you, and then you'll hear some from nonprofits. Jeff is going to talk about that more a little bit, to get help for our youth, for our citizens of all ages, to make our community better. We have such an opportunity because of the size we are to correct these problems. We're not Baltimore, Detroit, New York. We can fix our community, make it a better place. That's what we're trying to do every day, is to build community. So I'm going to turn it off. Jeffrey Goodman is our director of marketing and development, and has really worked hard to put this together. And others like you. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you all for being here. I'm going to be seated over here, so I'm going to go ahead and walk over here. Wanted to welcome everyone. As Gary said, my name's Jeffrey Goodman. I'm the Director of Marketing and Development here at the YMCA of Northwest Louisiana. We really appreciate all of you making the time to be a part of tonight. Tonight is the 6th panel that we've hosted as part of our Shreveport, Bossier, My City, My Community, My Home initiative that we launched in February of last year. We've also published 66 podcasts as part of this initiative, and all 66 episodes, as well as video of the first 5 panels, all of that is available on the YMCA of Northwest Louisiana's YouTube channel. And as Gary mentioned a little bit, the purpose of this initiative that we started in February of last year is to help our community develop a better sense of self, a better self-identity, and to leverage our position here at the Y as a community center to bring people together to address some of the challenges we're facing as a community. So a few quick things about tonight's format. The presentation should last about an hour. You will hear from all 4 panelists. You will also hear from a few of our community leaders who are working hard to build a stronger community for all of us to live in. We expect this to be an important discussion and for very valuable information to be shared. We would really appreciate all of you to be respectful when someone is speaking. We are not going to take questions from the audience this evening. Again, we are not going to take questions tonight from the audience, but each of the community leaders that's here, they all have tables set up around the gymnasium. They would love to speak with each of you after the presentation about ways you can all get more involved in making this a safer and healthier community. So thank you. Okay, so as most of you know, we're here tonight to talk about the juvenile and young adult crime in our community. We'll first hear from the following people: Mayor Tom Arceneaux, Sheriff Steve Prator, Chief Wayne Smith, and Clay Walker. Then a number of community leaders, and Clay Walker was Director of Juvenile Services for many, many years. He is the newly appointed Assistant Parish Administrator. Then a number of community leaders will speak who have programs in place that are models of some things that are working in this community. So let's first define what we're talking about. We specifically called tonight's meeting Juvenile and Young Adult Crime. Chief Smith, would you mind, can you describe for the audience What is the current increase in crime that we're seeing? Is it juveniles? Is it young adults? Who is it?
Thank you so much. We look at juveniles and young adult crime. Juveniles, we look at people up to the age of 18. Young adults, we look at those of people that's from 18 to 25, almost to 30, in that age range. The crimes that's being committed around our city, there's a fair mixture of both, juveniles and young adults. Certain crimes pretty much are specific to juveniles, thefts, burglaries of automobiles, thefts of automobiles, are almost exclusively people that's in the juvenile age range. But also, our city is being affected by violent crimes that's also people in both age ranges, say from 15 years of age or up, are involved in violent crimes. It's so alarming to me because of all of my years of service, 43 as a matter of fact. I've just never seen or experienced the age range appear to get younger with people who are involved in all sorts of crime, and especially the violent crimes. Quite often, SPD officers stop people that's in those age ranges that are armed. It's just amazing, it's surprising to me how people of such young age can be so infatuated with firearms, carry firearms, and you hear some unbelievable reasons from young people, such as, I am armed to protect myself from somebody else in my age range who is armed. So that's kind of where we are.
Thank you. So Mayor Arceneaux, my next question is, could you talk about how you see the role of the mayor's office in relation to crime?
You know, one of the things that you learn, I'm now not quite 7 months in office, be 7 months on the 31st of this month. And what you learn from working with people within law enforcement is that we're actually really blessed to have the people in charge of law enforcement that we do. I have ideas about crime. Most of those are amateur ideas. I do some reading and I do some study, but mostly I'm an amateur in this. The people that are the experts are these two guys who are sitting next to me, and what I have learned in my 7 months is how expert they actually are and the things that they are doing to combat crime in our neighborhood. They both have a wealth of experience, a tremendous number of decades and years of experience in doing this. They're thoughtful people and they're creative people. And so I am blessed to do that. One of the things I want to make sure that people are aware of is that a number of years ago, the Shreveport Police Department applied for a grant from the Department of Justice. And the purpose of that grant was to set forth a summit of stakeholders in crime. And they held a symposium on the 4th and 5th of May, a half a day each, and invited law enforcement officials from the local, state, and federal government, and also stakeholders from the community. Some of the very people in this room, some of the people that you're going to hear from, are the people that were present for those 2 days, where Justice Department facilitators were helping to identify what the issues were, and then identify 3 or 4 different areas of action and action steps that could be taken. So what they're in the process of doing is taking the information from that symposium, and for example, see who was included. SPD, Caddo Parish Sheriff's Office, Caddo District Attorney's Office, City Marshal's Office, State Police, Justice Department, the Drug Enforcement Administration, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, as well as community leaders in juvenile justice, as well as criminal justice, who were all there to put their heads together and say, all right, let's put together an overall plan that we can use to hit particular steps that we can know that we're making progress in what we're doing. Let's not make any mistake about it. If the sheriff's office or the FBI or ATF or DEA or the Shreveport Police Department knew where a crime was going to be happening, they would be there and they would prevent that crime or do everything they could to prevent that crime. We don't do that. We are responders. When crime occurs, it's our responsibility to react to it and to do it. Now, that doesn't mean that things that we do don't help. At least we hope they help to deter crime because people are concerned about being apprehended. The law enforcement agencies in Caddo Parish, including the chief, the sheriff, and their staffs, they are the ones that have the knowledge to wage war against crime. And they are using their knowledge, they're using their experience to do those very things. The Caddo juvenile judges and staff know about juveniles and criminal enforcement for juveniles. And believe me, they are doing their job as well, and we should expect them to do their job. So what I have learned, and I'll speak about this a little bit later in the program, what I have learned is that the agencies that serve you on the federal, state, and national and local level, those agencies not only are willing to cooperate with each other, they are cooperating with each other. You probably have read that the United States Attorney a couple of weeks ago arrested 24 alleged gang members involved in some criminal enterprises. That results from a lot of work by the federal government, but also results from the cooperation of our local government law enforcement agencies as well. So just because you see an arrest made at the federal level doesn't mean that we didn't have a significant local law enforcement input into the investigation and into those crimes. So what I have learned in seven months as your mayor is that we have very, very good people who are dedicating their time, their creative energy, and their significant experience to helping to bring those who commit crimes to justice, and also to send the message that if you commit a crime, you will be brought to justice.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief Smith, as the chief and subject matter expert, can you tell me about the strategic plan and its 3 goals?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We were quite fortunate to receive a federal grant through the Public Safety Partnership, where the feds come in, evaluate what we've been doing, evaluate what's going on in our community, bring great suggestions, expose us to techniques and procedures that are working in other places. But anyway, it brought about a summit that included all of the law enforcement, the public safety entities here in Shreveport, and also the public stakeholders. And out of that, one thing that really, really made me happy is when the feds said, you're doing so many great things here, a lot more than others are doing around the country. But out of that came some specific goals for us to target. And the plan of those goals was to give us some framework moving forward. The first of that goal was smarter policing, where we will focus a lot of our attention on using intelligent-led policing to apprehend our violent offenders that terrorize our city. We're also going to embrace more and more technology and have that access to us for training officers. We've identified leaders within our department that's leading the charge in that direction, and without speaking too much, it is beginning to pay off. We're seeing progress. The second of those goals was crime prevention. In years past, crime prevention was a large component of SPD's strategy. We would much rather spend our time preventing crime than we will responding to crimes. But over the course of years, for one thing and another, that didn't get completely put on the back burner, but it's not as much focus on that as we would like for it to be. So in the times to come, we're going to focus more of our efforts on crime prevention. As a matter of fact, out of being affiliated with the Public Safety Partnership, we've been able to, at the government's expense, the federal government's expense, travel to some other cities to see some things that are working for them. In probably the first 6 months of that, me and my staff traveled to Baton Rouge and learned about their Police Chiefs Advisory Council, that once a month, the chiefs of police set aside a day and meet with a cross-section of our community to stay in tune with what's going on in the city, and helps us to develop strategies, to make our city a safer city. That is in the process of occurring right here. We hope to, sometime in September, to kick that off. And we found grant funding to pay for that with an organization that is their specialty in cities. They set up these committees. They'll be the ones to go out to study our community and find the people to come to the table to meet with me every month and tell me what's going on in your community. I can tell you what's going on in the police department, and we can work together. We are very, very looking so forward to that. And our third goal was in communications. We're going to do a much better job in communicating what we're doing to the community. And thank you so much for hosting this tonight, so we'll have the opportunity to do that. Your police departments, your law enforcement agencies are working very diligent to make our community safer. You just don't know about all the things that we do, and we hope to share some of those with you without jeopardizing, our progress. So that's it.
Thank you, Chief. Sheriff Prator, you've been in law enforcement in this community for 40-plus years. Would you mind giving us some historical perspective on crime in this community, as well as how you see the role of the Sheriff's Office in preventing crime?
Yes, sir. The Sheriff's Office is very important, as you know, to the role of preventing crime. But a lot of what we do in preventing crime, and it's kind of like, that'd be kind of like asking Willis Knighton or LSU Medical Center, what is your role in preventing COVID? When in fact, the majority of the time, they are treating COVID. Okay, and its prevention has to come from a lot of other things. They can help to advise, but Willis Knighton didn't have the resources to go out and prevent COVID. And it's much like us in law enforcement. So I'm more along the lines of, you might have heard the expression, tough on crime and careful with your money. And that's why I'm more about accountability. I love the fact that we at the Sheriff's Office and the Police Department can take their time and they can play basketball and coach basketball and have fishing tournaments and things like that, and we can fit that in occasionally. But we don't have the resources. We are short-handed. We're 60 short. They're 130 short. We don't have time to raise kids. We want to help in that endeavor, but there's other groups. There's Volunteers for Youth Justice. There's all sorts of groups out there. It needs, I'm not diminishing the importance of the prevention end of it. But at best, many times us in law enforcement, we do what we call displaced crime. Take, for instance, the other night when they had all the shooting and all the problems we're having downtown. Okay, we can be down there and you call it preventing crime, the more people that we got down there. But really, in fact, we're displacing crime. They will go somewhere else. We need to have groups that are actually working on our kids, and we're going to talk about truancy in a little while. I know Clay's like the expert juvenile guy ever, and he's going. That needs to be done. That's got to be done. But law enforcement, we are good at catching people, and once we catch them, we've got to have the rest of the system that then holds them and convicts them and prosecutes them, and they are sent off to serve some time to be held accountable for what they did. We have a society these days that people are not being held accountable for what they do. And the less accountable we are, such as raising the age from 17 to 18 now. You're hearing more and more about juvenile crime, but much of what you're hearing is because 2 years ago, a 17-year-old wouldn't have been a juvenile. And 17-year-olds are some of our prime, some of the most, the age group that's committing most of the crimes. So all of a sudden they flop from adult to juvenile. So now we're treating them like juveniles. I read a lot of cowboy books where the 15 and 16-year-old little girl was getting married and the 15, 16-year-old guy was out doing the cattle, and they were mature at that time. And instead of going backwards, holding people more accountable, expecting more out of them, we're going the opposite way. And it does not make sense to me. So anyway, back to sum up what I've said, is I think that we need to work hard, and some of you in this audience are so important on our prevention end of it. We got to raise our kids better. We've got to hold people accountable that are parents that are not raising their kids like they're supposed to. We've got to figure out a way to do that besides begging them to do the right thing. That begging them to do the right thing ain't working that well. So we got to figure out a way to get them to do that end, and you do your end preventing it, and we'll do our end catching them, and we'll expect others to do their end prosecuting them and holding them in jail and getting them away from us that choose to come to meetings like this rather than be robbed and raped. And that's my story.
Thank you, Sheriff. So Clay, my next question is for you. Would you mind talking about some of the contributors to the crime situation our community is currently facing?
Sure. So speaking in some generalizations, but we do have a number of kids that come into juvenile court, and I'll just say, normal kids, normal family, and they make a stupid teenage decision. And that crosses all barriers, racially, gender. Kids that make bad decisions, they come in, the court system holds them accountable, and a lot of those kids, because what we do basically is alert their parents to the fact that they're causing these troubles, the parents get involved, and we really don't see those kids again. We do have another population of kid that come in, and frankly, they don't have that parent. They don't have that structure. So the contributors to crime, unfortunately, poverty and that lack of parental structure. So you can be poor and yet raised with morals and values and work ethic and do fine, but true poverty that takes away resources from a family, and then when you combine that with it's a parent who never had a role model to be a parent. I'm not saying these are bad people. They love their kids. They truly don't know what to do. Earlier this year, D.A. Stewart approached me about truancy, and he said that he wanted to hold some of the parents accountable. He said, if the parents need help, let's help them. But if they're not doing what they need to do and they're thumbing their nose at the system, then we need to hold them accountable. And we actually looked through 4,000 cases in elementary school truancy, and we came up with 17 parents. Only 17 parents that were truly thumbing their nose at the system. And those 17 had warrants issued for them, and we went to go arrest them. But the significant majority of parents that we were working with, if they weren't thumbing their nose, they just don't know what to do. They don't know what age they're supposed to sign their kid up. The highest rate of truancy is kindergarten. The second highest is first grade. They don't know where to sign them up, how to sign them up. They don't know what to do. When Volunteers for Youth Justice gets involved on the truancy level and goes to the home and works with the family, a huge percentage of those get back in school. The parents are actually thankful to have the support. And so the problem is that when you have a parent that doesn't know what to do and you have extreme poverty, and I'll just kind of use myself or my son as an example. My son plays, he started soccer here at the Y, started t-ball here at the Y, played golf at 265. We've got a two-parent home. I have all 4 grandparents in town, and it takes all of us to get him to the sports, you have to be able to afford the entry fee, and you have to have the transportation. The kids that I work with don't have that. And some of the numbers you see up here, I believe, that are up there. In 2021 was the second worst year of juvenile crime in Shreveport's history. 1992 was the worst. 2021 was the second worst in Shreveport's history. In all of 2021, only 304 children came to juvenile detention. There's 37,000 children in public school in Caddo, and only 304 caused juvenile crime in Shreveport. 66 of them, only 66, came back twice. So in the entire parish, for all of 2021, only 66 children came back twice to juvenile detention. We tracked their files, we looked in their folders, and in terms of asking what are contributors to crime, what these 66 had in common, we could not find one single pro-social adult in 66 children's lives. If I got in trouble at school, my dad showed up. My mom showed up. I got coaches. I got ministers. I got counselors. I got choir directors. I mean, my village was there for me. These 66 kids have no one. Mom, we've got kids in juvenile court that are being released by the judge that day, and nobody shows up to get them. So the contributors to crime, again, poverty, because they can't afford the entry fee and they don't have the transportation. And then unfortunately, parents that don't have a role model for parenting themselves, and so they don't do a great job parenting.
And then COVID, maybe talk.
Yeah, so COVID hits. Again, the same kind of kid. I mean, this is a generalization, but I'm generally talking about boys, okay? So I represented kids in juvenile court for 12 years. In 12 years, I worked with 2 biological dads. Juvenile court is single moms and high poverty. And so boys are vulnerable to gangs if they don't have a father figure, an uncle, a coach, a minister. Think of the people in your lives. If they don't have that, they're vulnerable to the 19-year-old on the street corner. That was true in 2019, in the beginning of 2020. We had about 75 gun charges in 2019. COVID, March of 2020, all the children went home for 18 months. So for 18 months, the boys that were somewhat vulnerable to gangs become way more vulnerable because they don't go to school for 8 hours a day. At that school, principal, vice principal, school resource officer, coaches, teachers, counselors, men and women that were these children's village, the kids were separated from them for 18 months during COVID. So the vulnerability to gangs, individual vulnerabilities went up, and the number of children vulnerable to it went up. And so what we saw in those 18 months was more children joining gangs and more organized gangs for the first time since y'all broke them up in the 90s. And that's what happened with COVID. And that's what we're now seeing and hearing, gunshots that we hear. Some of it is domestic, some of it is problems downtown, drinking at 3 in the morning. Too much of it is juveniles and young adults in gang warfare, shooting at each other. One more detail about that too, Instagram. I don't know if y'all, I mean, I'm too old. I barely do Facebook. I do Facebook because I like to see people's pictures from trips or something. I barely do Facebook. The kids are on Instagram. You can go on Instagram, take any pictures you want with guns. You can sell the guns. And so that's where this is all happening. Kids involved with gangs, kids in our public schools, middle school, I mean, the reference to younger and younger ages. Kids that are 8, 9, and 10 holding AR-15s, posing for a picture on Instagram and threatening the 10-year-old that lives 6 blocks away. When they see each other at Tinseltown, there's a shooting. That's what's happening, and it's not just Shreveport. So our juvenile services We have gone from California to Virginia. We went to gang training up in Chicago to try to learn everything that's happening in the country, who has solutions. It's happening all over the country, Instagram, gangs, and guns. I'm on a monthly Zoom. There are 13 juvenile detention centers in Louisiana. I'm on a monthly Zoom with all 13. Every single juvenile detention center. Guns, Instagram, gangs. That's what we're all dealing with.
Thank you. So Chief Smith, I recently attended a strategic planning session, and a point was made that there are three main pieces: prevention, policing, and treatment. It sounds like we're doing the best on the policing part. I've heard you say that your number one goal is intelligence-led policing, focusing on violent offenders, recognizing that the majority of violent crime is committed by a very small number. Without revealing too much, can you tell us a little about this focus on intelligence-led policing? I know you mentioned it previously, but can you talk a little bit more about it, if you wouldn't mind?
Yeah, absolutely. As with most crimes and people that commit crimes, they have a trademark. They leave something behind that gives us an indication which direction to go with good leads. I speak with the investigators all the time that investigate crimes, violent crimes and crimes that are not violent. And one of the questions I asked, how often do you encounter someone who is brand new? This is the first crime that they've ever committed. I haven't had an investigator yet to tell me I've ever encountered anyone that this was their first crime. But there are some really interesting things about people, who they affiliate with, groups that they affiliate with, the marks that they leave out there, the signals that's going to give us a better idea of who's committing the crime, who has that thought in their mind, their intended targets. But intelligence-led policing is going to allow us to use all of those tools that are out there, the technology that's available to help us to lead in a direction of preventing crimes before they occur. That's our ultimate objective, is to stop something before it ever occurs. And in that piece, we're finding that there are those who can make good decisions sometimes, most of the time, but some who are incapable of making good judgment decisions all of the time. Some of these, there's a mental health component. I honestly feel that that is the case. And being affiliated with the different resources around our community, we're hoping to find wraparound services to be able to help someone in all areas of where they need help. In policing, we're going to make arrests. That's what we do. If there's someone that we feel that is having some mental health issues or some challenges that got them there in the first place, we hope to get them the help they need. But all of the resources have to come together. All of the ingredients have to come together to make a good mixture, and we're looking forward to doing just that.
Thank you. Sheriff Prator, I know you're having trouble with overcrowding at CCC. How's treatment and reentry going, and is that an area you feel we could improve upon?
Well, we have some really good programs at CCC to try to help inmates to where we don't have to see them again. We don't want to, that's our goal, is that they not come back. So we do a lot of that. In fact, we have 10 separate programs. We have a whole programs unit, and we're funded, the Caddo Parish Commission helps us fund that particular effort out there, and we appreciate that. It's the deputies and the mental health professionals that we have hired out there. All of that is voluntary. We don't have to do that. We are not a prison. We are a jail. We're a holding facility. So we never know how long we're going to have someone. So they might enter into a program one day, and then 3 days later, they bond out or they're transferred somewhere else. And so they've had 1 day of a 10-week program. Same thing with their GED or they don't call it that now, it's a high set, yeah. Same thing with a high set. It's the same kind of situation. So we're not a long-term holding facility, but we do have some programs. Reentry is something that the state of Louisiana built a reentry center so that we could send inmates that have been convicted and are about to be released back onto the streets of Caddo Parish or Webster, DeSoto, Bossier, and they go through a short program, and it's I don't know, 100 hours or something like that. It's a short program, and it teaches them some of the basic skills that you and I and some of the others might have grown up to know, and it tries to give them a little head start so when they do get out, because we don't want to see them again. But having said all of the good work that we're doing out there, and we are doing a lot of good work, well, our facility is way overcrowded. We have about 1,350 people out there in a facility built for 1,070. We have over 1,000 out there right now that are awaiting trial. It's about $77 a day. It costs the Caddo Sheriff's Office and the Caddo Parish Commission, it costs about $77 a day per prisoner. So it's costing you all in this room, if you live in Caddo Parish, it's costing you about $77,000 today, each day. Every day, it's $77,000. We're holding people that are awaiting trial. Some have been out there 3-4 years awaiting trial. So we are over capacity in just those that are awaiting trial. And it's not because law enforcement is making more arrests. We are a lot more particular with the arrests we make. We issue a lot more summonses because we don't have room there. So we are arresting 50% of the people that we used to arrest 10 years ago, and our awaiting trial capacity is twice what it used to be. So you see, we've got to get people processed through the system, either found innocent or found guilty. If they're guilty, ship them off to a state facility and get them off of your payroll. And if they're innocent, get them out of the facility. So if we've got that many out there awaiting trial, can you imagine how many are out on bond for violent crimes in Caddo Parish? And naturally, if you're not in jail, there's not going to be any rush to get you to trial. So almost every person that we arrest for a violent crime has prior felonies or is on bond for something. That tells you a lot right there about accountability. And I want to straighten out, or not straighten out, I want to make sure that you have it clear in your mind. Some of the things Clay's talking about, and we're talking about these truancy rates, we're talking about kindergartens, and that's where it all starts. I mean, let's all face it, that's where it starts. But what I'm talking about, and the accountability and all that, is not on a fifth grader. I'm talking about a 17-year-old, 18-year-old that decides they're going to carry around a fully automatic Glock that they made fully automatic with a little switch, and they're going to spray the neighbor because the neighbor said something on Instagram that they didn't like. Those kind of people, I'm sorry, they need a second chance after they've paid for the first chance they had, because there's something wrong with a person that'll do that, okay? So anyway, did I answer any questions at all? Or did I just rant? I'm passionate about what I do, and anyway.
Thank you. And Chief Smith, you wanted to add something?
I wanted to add a little bit to what Sheriff Prator said. SPD here in your city, we provide to Caddo, to CCC, the majority of the people that's in his facility. As of a couple of weeks, his facility, as he said, is designed to hold 1,070 or something in that range. As of a couple of weeks ago, this year, we've sent 1,100 and some people to him from the Shreveport City Jail. So we're adding to his problem, and I'm gonna keep adding to your problem, by the way.
Storing them.
Yeah, you know, weapons is a big problem here in our city, a big problem. Last year, the Shreveport Police Department, we took 1,204 weapons, illegally possessed weapons, off our streets. This year, as of July the 12th, we have taken 603 illegal weapons off of our streets. They seem to be making their way to the street faster as we can take them off. And let me tell you this for everybody's understanding, the weapons that we're getting are not your shotgun that you go duck hunting with, or not your .22 rifle that you go squirrel hunting with. These are weapons that's designed for nothing other than to cause severe harm and kill people. Weapons with a design for mass destruction. Weapons with capacities holding 50 and 100 rounds. That's what's out there.
Sorry, the lights turned off. Clay, go ahead if you want to.
Just one thing about when the chief said illegal weapons, if I could correct you, illegally possessed weapons. Okay, there's a big difference. A felon with a firearm, because a lot of the guns we seize, they come from Academy. They come from Walmart. They come from the pawn shops.
Out of your cars and your
They're legally, but a lot of them, the majority of them, are legally purchased. And then they are like a girlfriend will go in Academy. I don't want to pick on them, so if you're in the news, don't use Academy. If your girlfriend goes in there, she's not a felon. She buys a gun, and she walks out to the car and gives it to you, who is a felon. Okay, it's considered a straw purchase, but then she's going to say, I didn't know he was a felon. So you can't, there's not really much prosecuting that. Those are not illegal guns, they're illegally possessed guns as soon as the felon touches it. Now, if it's a stolen gun out of a car, which there's a lot of those, so please lock your cars, but those are illegally possessed weapons too. And the International Association of Chiefs of Police and the National Sheriff's Association say that if you will take every illegal possession of a firearm charge and handle it seriously, not give them 20 years, but handle it seriously, do not drop it, do not dismiss it, do not reduce it. If you will do that, you will reduce your violent crime rate. I've got all sorts of information in books, and it works.
Thank you, Clay.
Yeah, I was just going to add to what the chief said about the 1,200 guns. From my point of view, the Shreveport Police do a very good job. They're using good intelligence. They're doing this smartly. Those 1,200 guns, they are preventing serious shootings, crimes on a regular basis. 75 of those guns came out of the hands of children. We have an operation within our juvenile department where if a child comes in with an illegal weapon and they're posting pictures on Instagram with guns, we can go do a search and find those guns. And on 75 occasions we did that and got guns out of the hands of kids with SPD and the Violent Crime Abatement Team. That work that they're doing, I know it's a little bit behind the scenes and citizens don't know a whole lot about it, but on a daily basis they are saving Shreveport from a lot of crime by getting those guns.
Thank you. So, Sheriff, I believe we have someone here tonight that works with you on reentry. We'll now hear from Carla Buntyn, who is the Executive Director of Compassion for Lives.
Okay, you guys, I'm Carla Buntyn once again. You guys, I'm Executive Director of Compassion for Lives. We've been partnering with Caddo Correctional about 8-9 years. We founded the organization. It was a bunch of like-minded individuals. We all came from human services, social work, and we found that Caddo, what Prator's saying basically, is that we're having to keep these men out of the prison system, jail system. The organization, we formerly worked with Clay Walker at Johnny Gray Jones when we first started, but we found it instrumental to start working with those adults, young adults. Clay, he gets those guys in juvenile services. They come over to Caddo when they're about 18 years old, and that's when they see me and my staff. We provide job readiness, career readiness, and we also provide substance abuse counseling to those men and women in Caddo Correctional. We've just started to offer what we call dialectical behavior therapy because we found by evaluation there was some mental health issues going on. So I just want to show you guys here. We started here with the youth years ago in 2013. This is a job fair we did here in the city of Shreveport for all those ex-offenders out of Caddo Correctional, because we did find there was some, barriers for those men here in the city getting employment. But even with employment, you guys, we found with a Compassion for Lives, there still was a barrier, because there were sometimes retention issues on these jobs. Sometimes these men would get in the jobs and they just wouldn't stay there, okay? So what we did at Compassion for Lives is we pushed things over to career readiness. Career readiness is what we saw these men really reintegrate. We really saw them get a second chance. The men started going to Northwest Technical College, and they started to pursue and receive certifications, CDL license, welding license, plumbing license. It started to work for them. So we saw that we were helping Steve Prator a little bit there out of Caddo Correctional by reducing recidivism. What they were doing, you guys, what we found effective, these men started bringing in their family and friends. So that's what we saw, that there was some prevention there. We had to also think about, to get those guys into these certification programs, they had to have a high set first. Most of these men, as Steve Prator stated, they don't have time to get those GED high sets in Caddo Correctional Center. They're there a short period of time. So when we found a gap at Compassion for Lives, we just filled it. So we now offer a high set class for those men and women. Now they're completing these high sets, and they're going right into, into their certifications. Okay, they're getting those, and we're really now seeing an effective group of men here coming out of Caddo Correctional. They're completing them, you guys. So what we do at Compassion for Lives, if we go into Caddo Correctional, partner with Prator about 8 years, we offer job readiness, career readiness, substance abuse, and now dialectical behavior therapy. And we're seeing a true reintegration for a lot of our men. I'm very excited, because for very many years, this young man here was in Caddo Correctional not too long ago. As Clay stated, juvenile his whole life. Then he gets over to Steve Prator, never ever owned anything of his own. No family, no home, no anything. Came out of Caddo Correctional, first apartment, on a job, in school. So we found, you guys, the deal here is education. We found that education was the key. Jobs were good, but this is the key right here. It's education. So what we offer at Compassion for Lives, let's talk about it, the core components. First of all, it's going to be case management. Then we're going to have mentoring component. Then there's education, which is at high set. Then there's going to be training. It's going to have to go to industry recognized credential, state or local area. And then after that, there's going to be workforce activities, which is going to lead to their employment. And what we do at Compassion for Lives is that we follow up. We never give up on them. We don't want them back in Caddo Correctional. I've been some of the same men about 8 years. Maybe they come out 1 year, they're back in the next year. I would like to see at Compassion for Lives and here for the city of Shreveport, us really reduce recidivism. And what I'm finding is the key, is the real true key, it's education. If we service about 1,000 men a year there with, like Prator said, he's 8 by 9 cells, 3 men in the cell, they're overcrowded. But when they come home, we try to keep them home, and what we found to be effective is education. Thank you, guys.
Hang tight, one sec.
Yeah.
Okay. So Clay, this next question's for you. I know the chief talked about his second goal was prevention. The sheriff said before it needed to be more juvenile and community. Clay, can you explain crime prevention to the layperson, please?
Yes, so the terms that we use in terms of crime prevention are, there's primary prevention, which is what all kids get. At school, all children go to DARE, for example. Everybody know the DARE drug program? All children get primary prevention. Secondary prevention is a targeted group, a smaller group where you know there's already problems. And probably the best example is truancy. Truancy is the first symptom of the problems that cause delinquency. And so when a kid is literally 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, but not going to school for 25, 50, 80 days, you've got a big red flag that there is dysfunction in this home, and that kid is headed, unfortunately, to juvenile court. And so that secondary prevention is to deal with that smaller group, but you go deeper. You give more. DARE is just a 1-hour class to everybody. Truancy is individual casework with that family. What are the social service needs in that home to get that kid back in school? Tertiary prevention, this is what the sheriff talked about a little bit. We do have to acknowledge there are kids that are 15, 16, involved with violent crime, and they do need to be locked up. Inside, I would like them to be, housed well and rehabilitated and have it be a setting where they can get out better, is the bottom line. But the lessons they're learning, we can't afford for them to learn on the street, because they've got to relearn some things about how they treat other people. But that kind of tertiary prevention is preventing reoffending. So that's the work that we do at Caddo Juvenile Court is try to assist the school system with primary. We do a lot of interventions with truancy and that sort of thing. And then our judges that deal with a lot of the tertiary, when the kids have committed offenses, how do we keep them from reoffending?
Thank you. So next we'll hear from Kasie Mainiero. Kasie is the Child Wellbeing Specialist for Caddo Parish Schools. And Kasie, I'll get you to the right place.
Sure. Hey, good evening. Just like what Clay was talking about with the tertiary crime prevention in Caddo and in schools, of course. Yeah, that's fine. We try to not ever get there. We want to prevent them from going down the wrong path in the first place. And so I'm very much about the primary crime prevention and way down in kindergarten and first grade and those ages where it's so critical that children do have the village. And what Clay talked about the village has kind of fallen apart. I'm going to start with just saying everyone knows the old ancient proverb about it takes a village to raise a child. But do you know the second part of it, which is the child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. And that is kind of where we are. And the good news is we can work on that by being the village. We are all here to be crime preventers. And what we're doing in Caddo schools, obviously what Clay talked about with, y'all saw what happened when we had COVID and we weren't in school. Those kids need to be at school because that is where their village is. Their teachers, the coaches, the administrators, the people that are there every day welcoming those kids to school and wanting them and showing them love and caring and kindness, that is what's going to make the difference. But when they're not there, we can't do that. And so that's why truancy is so important, that we stay on that. And we have groups like TASK that are doing that work, that important work. I want to point out to you that we have a new department, and much like Mayor Arceneaux, I'm pretty new in my role as Child Wellbeing Specialist. It's a new department, and it's something that we felt was very important that we looked at this at the earliest levels and say, we want our kids in Caddo Parish Schools to feel welcome and wanted at school. And that is the most basic level of crime prevention. If you look at a child and look in their eyes and make them feel wanted, make them feel cared about, make them feel loved, they may not choose that path to go be in that gang because they feel like there's some adult in their life who loves them, who cares about them, and who cares if they pass their math test this week. So helping the child feel wanted and welcome is our primary crime prevention, really, because that right there is everything. We have a plan. I'm not going to go in depth into our plan, but I can tell you that we have a 5-year plan for becoming a trauma-informed district. And this basically means that we're helping the teachers, the educators, all of the people who touch the lives of a child in the school system. We're helping them understand the impact and the prevalence of trauma on those children. And not only on the children, but on themselves. We have all experienced a trauma with COVID, but we all have other traumas in our lives that we've experienced. And we help the teachers and educators and everyone in the school system understand that that affects how people act. What they've been through and your experiences, that shapes who you are and what choices you make and what path you might go down. And so when we see children who have outbursts or they're dysregulated, we need our teachers and our people on our staff to understand the why behind that behavior. Why is this child acting out? Not just this child is acting out to try to make me mad. That's not what their goal is. Usually children who are acting out have a reason behind it. So helping teachers see that, helping people who work at the school see that, that's what we're working on, and we're working on that through education of the staff. We have trained, Clay and I have trained over 3,000 educators since January in what's called ACEs training, and we have more to come, and that's what we're working on, is giving them that knowledge so that they can respond appropriately. So this is, in a nutshell, the simple version of the Caddo plan. We have 3 big outside agencies that are working very close with Caddo Parish Schools. The first being the VYJ, the Volunteers for Youth Justice. We have a pilot school program that's happening where we have school-based resource teams coming into 5 pilot schools. These 5 pilot schools they're consisted of rural, urban, suburban, a mixture of different types of schools so that we could see what that school-based resource team, how it can affect our school outcomes. We had the first pilot at University Elementary where I was the principal at the time, and we saw great gains in test scores. We saw awesome gains in attendance, decreases in truancy problems, even increases in our state test scores. So we know that we have some evidence towards this working, and we can't wait to see what's coming in this pilot that's coming up. And so it's a great thing. There's conflict resolution. There is a TBRI practitioner who is going to be on staff, which is a hands-on responder, basically a first responder to behavioral situations in school. So those teachers no longer have to just keep on trying to push through. They have somebody that can help them regulate a child so that they can keep teaching math. And then get that child, the objective is to get that child right back into the classroom as fast as they can, because we know that children who are not in the classroom are not learning, right? So it's very exciting. There's more components to that, but that is one of the programs we have that we're working on. And then we have community renewal in schools, which is about intentional caring. And it's really helping schools shape the climate and culture of their school, which means when you walk into school, you feel welcomed and you feel wanted and you feel glad to be there. It's engaging and it's friendly, and the kids really want to come back for more the next day. So community renewal is helping do that in some of our schools through their support, and they help us with that. And so it's a great model that is about intentionally caring. And then we have the VOA, which Carolyn's going to talk about, so I'm going to let her do that. But it's communities in schools, and it is a great, amazing program we have in Caddo Parish. So we have a lot of things going on that gives us hope for the future of our children. These children are getting the village model right now. And so we see a difference in those kids as they're growing up. Hopefully, these types of things that are put in place where there's adults who are engaging with children in a caring way, maybe they will help them choose the right path instead of the wrong path. And that's our goal with those types of things. We really know that together we are better. And having the outside agencies come into the school is a great thing. And I saw it firsthand as a principal. So we want more of that. So that's that. And then I already talked to you about how we're training people.
1 minute, Kasie.
Okay, and the wellness curriculum that we have is another way. And then we have the harbor, which Kelly's going to talk about, so I'll let her have that. But Just as a final thought, you can help out. You can call the Harbor, and they can tell you how you can become a TBRI advocate or a mentor to a child. Thank you.
Thank you, Kasie. And next we'll hear from Carolyn Hammond. Carolyn is the president and CEO of Volunteers of America, North Louisiana, or VOA, as many of you know it.
Okay, how do I work this thing?
There you go.
I turned
Hit
it
the
on.
lights.
Okay, yeah. You didn't tell me I'd have to be technical assistance. Good evening. My name is Carolyn Hammond, and I am glad to be here as well to talk about what we are doing for prevention. And really, we have the opportunity to be preventative. Before they see anyone at this table, hopefully we're able to work with them and provide services to them that will impact their life, set them up for staying in school and being successful. So what Volunteers of America has really put together is what we think is a model, thank you, a model that serves the whole child and provides wraparound services to that child. And so I kind of want to break down and talk about each one independently. First of all, I'd like to talk about our Lighthouse after-school program. A lot of people are familiar with our Lighthouse program. We've been doing it for over 30 years, and that program provides a safe place for students to go during the after-school hours and in the summer hours to provide quality, high-intensive, engaging activities. We know that kids have been in school all day long. We want to provide a place where they can come and still learn. We can extend that school day, but they're fun activities where kids are having fun and learning together. And so just kind of give you an idea, last year, with our last school year, our average GPA for our students was a 2.87, and that's good for a lot of the campuses that we're working in have low GPA, so we're really proud of that work that we had this last year. The second tier of our model is our youth behavioral health services. You've heard it multiple times from multiple people today. We truly believe that our students are struggling with trauma, their parents are struggling with trauma, they're not able to help their child because they are struggling with their own trauma and their own mental illness. And so we have a youth behavioral health program that we've partnered, and we are in Caddo Parish Schools, where we actually see kids out on a school campus, or we see them in the community setting. And our goal, again, is find out what's going on, what happened, how can we help you to set you up for the best success so you can be in the classroom and you can be learning and you can go on to have, success. And so just to kind of give you some of these stats, and we're really proud of these stats, and you'll see, I think our numbers are pretty high of the number of students we serve with behavioral health services in Caddo and DeSoto Parish last year. But in Caddo Parish, 99% of the students that received our behavioral health services avoided expulsion for behavioral health reasons. And then 99% of those students remained at home and avoided out-of-home placements such as foster care. Again, we're really proud of that. A child, really needs to be at home in a safe structure. And then finally, I want to mention our Communities and Schools program, which Kasie alluded to. We're really proud of this partnership. We are a licensed partner of the national organization Communities and Schools, which is the nation's largest dropout prevention program. And what we have done here locally in North Louisiana is we've implemented their model of integrated student supports, which is wrapping around a student and providing them with all the supports that they need to be successful. And really what we're trying to do is remove those barriers for academic success. And we really focus on what we call the ABCs, attendance, behavior, and course performance. And we're trying to work on that before it ever gets to truancy. So for attendance, so we want to make sure if a student is not coming to school, why are they not coming to school? We want to work with that parent and that family, and we're in that unique position that we get to go as a friend. Mom, Johnny needs to be in school. What's going on? Why is Johnny not coming to school? So that gives us an advantage where we can go talk to a family and really encourage them to come to school. Behavior, Kasie's talked about it, but really if a student's acting up and constantly being put out of the classroom, We want to know what's going on. Why are we acting up? Y'all sometimes, and y'all know this, but sometimes I don't know how to read, so if I act up, I get put out of the class, and I don't have to be embarrassed in front of my friends that I don't know how to read. So maybe we can pull that student and work with that student on some reading and some interventions with reading. And then finally, course performance. You know, if they're not in school, if they're always being put out of the classroom, their grades are probably struggling. And so we work with some wonderful volunteers and businesses that actually come in and tutor, and there's some of you in the room that actually come in and tutor 1 hour a week with our students and help them get caught up. And that can be something as simple as basic math facts. A student needs some basic math facts, to reading fluency, having a child read to you or you read to a child. And then, of course, we work with the school administrative team. What are the overall needs of a school campus? And that can be anything from our students need uniforms, our students need basic food and supplies, but it could be something more like attendance. We're really struggling. We want to see how we can get kids to come to school. And so we create some attendance incentives to work with the campuses. So we case manage a group. I got 1 minute? Okay. We case manage a group of about 720 students last year, and those students get intensive type services. And I do want to share 720 kids across 12 Caddo Parish campuses. 100% of those kids stayed in school, and we're proud of that. We know those kids are getting the services they need. If I can just go real quick story. Over our course of 9 years with communities and schools, we have found the needs of our students really are broad. We have seen students not come to school simply because the family had to share a pair of shoes. So one student came one day, the next student came the next day. That was a simple fix for us to work with someone. Byrd High School adopted and said, we will provide shoes. We'll do a shoe drive and collect shoes. That's a simple solution. But we've also seen kids who behavior issues that were constantly being put out of class, and we were able to work with them on a weekly basis to get them back in class and become the most improved student in 5th grade graduation. So we're really proud of the work that we are doing with CIS, and if anybody's interested about volunteer opportunities, we'll be at this table behind afterwards. Thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn. And now we'll hear from Kelli Todd. Kelli is the Executive Director of Volunteers for Youth Justice, or as many of you know it, VYJ. And Kelli, I'll come advance your slide too.
I might can figure it out. I won't be Carolyn.
There you go.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Kelli Todd. I'm the Executive Director for Volunteers for Youth Justice. VYJ is the easy way to say it and remember it. So we've been around since 1981, and is this better? Okay, because I'm tall. We've been around since 1981, and we have been in the community working for 42 years. We started off merely as intervention for the juvenile court. That's what we did. We worked with kids to keep them out of the court system. Over the last 42 years, we've really, really, really grown. We work now in the school system. We also work in the foster care system, all kinds of different systems. But the three things I want to talk about when we're talking about crime is 3 programs we have. Number 1 is conflict resolution. I'm not sure if y'all have heard of that. That's our school fight program. Every school fight that enters Caddo Parish is referred to our class, and the 2 fighters have to attend before they can return to school, and they have to try to figure out what caused this issue. And the reason I mention that is a lot of these kids that are getting in fights now, it used to be they were upset because someone talked about their girlfriend or talked about this. Now it's no, they witnessed their brother get murdered last night, and they were so angry they just went to school hitting people. We've had to hire conflict resolution case managers just to deal with some of these issues we're seeing, things we've never heard about in prior years. The other thing I want to talk about is our FINS program. That's our Families in Needs of Services that we run. Is housed at the back of the juvenile court. And these FINS officers, they deal with kids who are ungovernable. A lot of these parents are trying. I know we all talk about parental engagement, but some of these parents are really, really, really trying. And these kids are running away, smoking marijuana, stealing. So these law enforcement officers, schools, different people in the community, they refer these kids to our program, and we work with the whole family so we can keep them out of court. The reason I mention that, prior to COVID, we averaged about 200 cases a year. We're up to 600 cases a year now that we're working with. That's a lot of casework for 5 people. but we're working to try to help these families. And then as y'all have alluded to with truancy all night, I've heard that key term. So something interesting I want to share that Clay had on the screen earlier, and if you really absorbed what you saw, there were over 3,114 elementary kids that missed 10 or more unexcused days, not just days. They probably missed 30 to 40 days, but 10 of them were unexcused because they wrote a parent note or got some type of excuse from a doctor. But that is a lot of school for someone to miss. It is our main focus right now. As Clay alluded to, a lot of these people in juvenile detention start off with truancy, but this is something that I'm not sure if it's been shared yet, but right now there's 19, 16, and 17-year-olds in CCC. 19, 16, and 17-year-olds. We pulled their truancy records, and all 19 have been involved with truancy, and 16 of them started in elementary. If we could have put better services in place when they were younger, we could have prevented some of these things. Everybody in this room. I mean, there's something that everybody in here can do. So that's something that we really started to focus on a few years ago is early prevention. So what we did is we took all of our programs, we run 10 different programs, and like Kasie said, we put them on a school campus. So we brought every program we have basically to University Elementary. It worked. So this year we're adding it to 4 additional schools. We're going to be at Turner, Donnie Bickham, Atkins, and Caddo Heights. The good news is, as Carolyn from VOA just talked about her communities in school, they're at a lot of these campuses. So when we do the prevention intervention piece and they really need that behavioral health with the counselor, we can walk them straight across the campus and they can get all these services at the school. This is a big deal for us and for VOA. We're really excited to partner in this. So if we're going to have it at 5 elementary schools this year, our goal is to keep expanding it and expanding it. So this is school-based. Now let's talk about community-based. Everyone knows how hard it is for our families to get across town or to get different places. It's easy for us. We get in our car and go, or we have our parent drive someone. So we've been working on this for 8 years. We have decided to bring all our programs along with a lot of other nonprofits under one roof. And we had a grand opening on May 18th. It's right down the street. I have no sense of direction, but that way? It's right across from Walmart in Shreve City. It's 3004 Ninth Street. We've opened the harbor. And if you'll look at the graphic I have under here, a family can walk in and get all these services under one roof. We're continuing to add services as we go. Anyone can refer here. We take walk-ins. This will allow law enforcement agencies to refer families here, and they don't have to leave. We can't service everybody. It's going to take, like I said, everybody in this room. We all have to come together and work together. Everybody that spoke tonight, Carla, Kasie, we all partner together. If I have someone that needs reentry, I know who to call. So it's important that everybody in here knows that it's going to take everyone in here to come together and to help these law enforcement and these city officials up here to make a difference.
1 minute, Kelly.
Thank you, Jeffrey. He said I only had 3 minutes. I'm almost done. So what can you do to help? How can you help us? Volunteers for Youth Justice has a table back here. We're looking for people to advocate for children in foster care, for children in the school system, to become a mentor to these kids. Some of these kids, Clay said, they don't have that pro-social adult. What if you could go be a mentor? You want to go read books for VOA at the schools? That's something you could do. We all need help, and it's going to take all of us coming together to make an impact. But please visit our table, and we'll be more than happy to share more information with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going a little long, which I apologize. We are going to skip a couple of questions just to be expedient. My next question is for Mayor Arceneaux. Mayor, you described your role earlier in crime as a conductor/coordinator. One of the things I learned at the strategic planning session is there's a committee known as the JACs. Would you mind describing that for us? Because I think people want to know how much all of you are working together.
Yeah, I think it's important for the community to know that that your local officials are concentrating on this on a very regular basis and are seeking to avoid duplication, but also to cooperate with each other. So the JACCS, which is much easier to say as JACS, is the Joint Advisory Committee on Community Safety. And what happens is that on a monthly basis for the last year or so, all of the stakeholders in local government, which includes the school system, it includes Volunteers for Youth Justice, it includes the Caddo Parish Sheriff's Office, the DA's office, the City of Shreveport, Caddo Parish itself, all of these agencies get together to discuss these questions and find out what resources each one can address to particular problems. That way, I'm not trying to do Casey's job, I'm not trying to do Carla's job, Carla's not trying to do my job, but all of us are simply learning what resources are available. And I think that the people of Shreveport, Caddo Parish should know that they have dedicated people who are talking to each other on a regular basis to address the problems that all of us face. Now, have we solved those problems yet? No, we haven't. But we are working on it together, and the people that you elect and that you use your taxpayer dollars to support, they are working together to address the problems that we're facing.
Thank you, Mayor. And so my final question tonight is going to be to Clay, but before I ask him the question, I just want to encourage everyone that's here who wants to be more involved and more a part of helping to address and combat this issue to please visit the tables after Clay responds. You will have leaders and representatives from all the organizations you see around the gym. They can all use additional support, additional resources, and would love to speak with you. So my final question to you, Clay, is having heard everything that we've heard tonight, how am I supposed to have hope that we're headed in the right direction?
So thank you, Jeffrey. The numbers that Kelli talked about are what are the most concerning to me. When I pointed out that 304 children in 2021 came to juvenile detention, but if you saw the other numbers up there, 25 plus days unexcused from school was 665. That essentially is the potential wave coming at us that we need to get in front of and prevent. And so, I'm grateful for all the work that Shannon Weish and Kelli do, at VYJ with truancy. That's what we've got to get in front of. The reason I'm hopeful for it, I'll put it in kind of two ways. One is they did it before. In 2016, when VYJ took over truancy, there were 750 petitions filed that year. Fast forward 3 years later, took 3 years to get it under control, but in 2019, only 25 petitions were filed. So they have gotten their hands around the truancy problem before. It is literally just meeting with families one-on-one, solving social service problems, helping single moms function and get the kids in school. And they've done it before, and I know they're going to do it again. So that does give me hope. The other reason I think, and Kelli talked about it a little bit, but really kind of take in the harbor. So the harbor is a one-stop shop where the school system and everything that Casey was talking about and what VOA does, if they identify a kid at 7, 8, or 9, and they're being molested or abused or neglected or all the different causes that make kids angry and come see me at 16, they can be referred to the harbor at 7, and we can prevent it. We got to wrap our hands around that kid. We got to lock up the stepdad that's doing it. We got to heal the kid, the trauma they've suffered, and then help them get back on the right path so that they don't come see me at 16. And it is so much easier and more effective to try that prevention at 7 than it is the sheriff talking about 17. Because I hate to say it, 16, 17-year-olds don't listen to adults anymore. They're listening to their friends and Instagram and whatever else. So that's why I'm hopeful is the harbor is now here in the community. The school system's connected to it. We can make a lot of referrals for that prevention and hopefully, getting truancy under control, get our hands around this.
Thank you. I just want to thank the 4 panelists, and I want to thank our community leaders who came and spoke, and I want to thank all of you for making the time to be here, and Lastly, just want to please encourage you to visit the folks' tables before you leave. And before we end, I know our CEO, Gary Lash, wants to say a few words.
Yeah, I want to thank you again, panelists, for helping come and lead our city through this crisis. I want to thank you for coming and encourage you to influence. You know, people say, oh, that's a depressing message I'm hearing tonight. What are we going to do? Influence 5 of your friends. I mean, you look around, how many people are here tonight? Influence 5 of your friends to let's do something different in our city to make it a better community. So again, I appreciate you coming, and let's go influence those people and get involved in this. Thank you.